And then kick us off. One, two, three, go. Hey, hey, this is Ankita, and you are tuned in to Prickly Pears, the podcast where we celebrate uninhibited brown women and their prickly points of view. This is season 3, the season where we talk all about lifelong relationships. Nalini is not here with us today, and I have the sole responsibility of guiding the conversation, which means it could go anywhere I wish to. Before I let our guests introduce themselves, they are special because they are the first married couple that we have on the show this season, but it's also the first male guest we have ever had on the show. So this is really exciting because we don't usually invite male perspectives so directly. Harsh, I'm going to start with you. Introduce yourself, please, and tell us how does it feel like to be the first man on Prickly Pears?
Hey Ankita, thank you so much for having us on this podcast. First man on the podcast, no pressure clearly, but it's an honor. Thank you so much. In terms of introducing myself, I've grown up in Pune, been in Pune for most of my life, did a bit of work in Accenture, and then went to ISB where I met Nam. Post that, I've been mostly in consulting and mostly abroad. Haven't been in India so much, and we've been in Dublin for the last 8 years. I am a Manchester United fan, and that's why we're recording it at this time because there's a game to go to. I love listening to podcasts. I like reading books, and I like spending time with Nam here.
Nam, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, Ankita. Thank you for having us on the podcast. I must say, before I introduce myself, today morning Harsh was just talking about Manchester United and he said, my second better half is Manchester United. And then he was like, do I need to rethink the word better because of how they're performing right now? When we say spouse it up, that's another, kind of spouse that I have to deal with. Somebody who's just like very committed to Manchester
That's a
United.
separate podcast, Ankita.
So he's juggling multiple relationships, Harsh. Thank you for having me. I am Namrata. I'm 40 years old. I've been married to this guy for 10 years. I've been working all my life. We met each other when we did our higher education. After that, we've been working in consulting off and on. We don't have any kids. So just to set a little bit of context in relation to the podcast.
I'm going to dive straight into the questions I have for you. I have a lot, and either of you can start. What was your thinking around lifelong relationships, especially marital relationships, as you were growing up? Take me through. Did you ever think about it, or how did you think about it when you were teenagers? In your 20s. I'm guessing you got married in your 30s, how it was then. And then now, well, one of you just hit 40. How do you think about it now? Has it changed through your arc of life at all, or has it stayed the same?
So growing up, I always found the whole marriage idea very bizarre. I was like, why would women sign up to this model? Because it had very strong gender roles. And in that model that, for each generation, I saw that the women were performing a similar role. Irrespective of how educated a woman is, they'll somehow end up performing the role of the nurturer. They will take care of the house, they will get married, rinse, repeat. The second generation will end up doing the same. I thought that, for women who had so much potential, beautiful creatures, why would they limit themselves to this model? So I always saw it with a lot of apprehension, to be honest, because I was like, of all the things you can do in your life, you can do anything. Why would you settle for a model which looks like this? So when I was growing up, it was not something that I actively thought I need to aspire for. I don't know if women aspire to get married. When I looked at it, I found that the men can go out and make a name for themselves, and obviously it's changing as the society is changing, but it's still something that's very prevalent. And even in our generation, we've heard things like, if you want to do higher education, you should also consider marriage, or those families are very nice because they'll allow you to do higher education even after getting married. And I was like, it's my life. I don't need anybody's permission to live my life, to make my own decisions. So I just found this a very bizarre model, and I didn't really understand what were women getting out of that model. I obviously get the companionship, get the seduction of, having being important to somebody. But I thought for myself that my priority is like, it's kind of like low in the priority of things. And then if something happens, if I find somebody that I gel with very well, I can consider marriage. It was in your mind because that's how you grow up. It's always in your mind because you're surrounded by the society, but it was not something that I was actively seeking. So for that matter, I never really went out on arranged marriage dates or never was on any dating website or anything like that. It was also not very prevalent when I was growing up, dating websites, so that was another reason. When I met Harsh, it helped that we were very good friends. When I was asking myself, do I need to get married? Do I want to get married? I had two very simple criteria. I did not want to be a fake person. I did not want to pretend in my marriage. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to make my own decisions. And I wanted a marriage where I had the comfort, the flexibility to be myself and shape my own life. So that was a non negotiable. And I asked a simple question when I thought about Harsh. If I envision my future, can I imagine a future with this guy? How would that future look? And when I asked that question, I could see a future with him. And it looked like a nice thing, something that was not very scary, something that I would look forward to. So I didn't really have a criteria, but when I imagined my future with this person, it looked like something that would be nice. An anecdote: when I was a child, I remember I was coming home from school and I was still 2 kilometers away from my home, and I met my grandfather, and suddenly it felt like I'd come home in spite of the fact that I was 2 kilometers away from my home. So I wanted somebody who would evoke that same feeling in me. And when I thought about that, and I was like, okay, this person feels like home. So those were kind of like very intangible criteria that I had when I thought, about making that decision for myself.
And how do you feel about marriage now that you've almost been married a decade?
It's interesting, right? You love it and you hate it sometimes. But I think you're not taught how to think about marriage. So you have to figure out your own answer as you go through it. For us, after 10 years of marriage, I have that comfort that, I want some space. We've been together, so I can ask for some space. And I would just like, I want to do my own thing for some time, because what happens is I feel that when you are married for a long time, you start thinking as one unit of a couple rather than as individual. And sometimes it is a bit disconcerting because it feels you're diluting your own individuality. So how I think about my marriage is that now I feel like I'm part of a unit, but I'm also an individual. So there's a balancing act that I have to do, and I'm recognizing that balancing act more as I spend more time in this marriage.
Awesome. It does feel like you stole Harsh's answer of independence that we were discussing a few days ago. But Harsh, I'm going to bring it to you.
I never thought about getting married. I was just told to get married and I got married.
Really?
I'm just kidding. No, no, jokes apart. So, look, as I don't want to repeat everything that she has said, but there's a lot that I agree with, right, in terms of us coming from a patriarchal society. And that's something that never sat well with me. And while I was growing up, there was a couple right across my place that the guy used to help the spouse or the lady in the house with all the chores, used to do everything in the house. And people used to kind of sometimes make fun of that. But I really, every time I looked at it, I used to be like, that's exactly how it should be. I understand both are working. There is a lot of responsibility that needs to be shared, and that responsibility does not get demarcated where the guy is taking care of everything outside and the girl is taking care of everything in the house. And that's the kind of marriage that I wanted. We wanted to be in a marriage where we are equals, and the fact that we were friends first, it just very organically grew and moved towards marriage because we were so comfortable with each other. There was no pretense. We could just be ourselves. We both knew the good, bad, and ugly about both of us, right? And that made it very, very easy for us to gradually transition into a marriage and a married life. As in, I don't know if you're going to ask this, but we don't even know who asked whom out. It was that organic. We just organically decided that this is the best thing for both of us, and we went ahead with it. So it's been the wedding arc or the marriage arc for me.
Before whoever asked whoever to get married, Harsh, before NAM, was there, like, did you think that, yes, I am going to marry someone eventually, or was it just like, oh, if it happens, it happens?
No, I think I always thought I would get married to someone. And again, we are talking about growing up in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
There was no concept of a civil partnership or a live-in relationship. For us at that time, the idea of being with someone was to get married. So that was never in doubt. I always knew that I would get married. Never had any issues or concerns with the concept of marriage. I have views about weddings, but not so much about marriages.
That's interesting. Now, like Harsh always thought, yes, eventually I'm all going to get married. Was not getting married ever an option in your head?
So I think I never wanted to pressurize myself, would I get married? Would I not get married? It was not a question that was important enough to think about so much. Wanted to give it up to the fates or give it up to how I was feeling about it. So, which is why when people or, used to talk about matrimonial websites, it just did not feel like, just instinctively did not feel like the right thing, because I was like, how will a person connect with me? If you're going with a checklist, they are going with the checklist. So it didn't feel like the way to make the most important decision in my life.
What age did you get married at?
I think I was, what, 29 or 30?
So did you not feel the society pressure or from family to get onto these matrimonial websites?
There was, like, obviously your relatives, like, and they are thinking they have your best interest in their heart, but their way of thinking did not really align with how you thought about it yourself. Luckily, like, I think my family, my mother especially, they were very nice in the sense that they wanted whatever will make me the happiest. I am very glad to have a family like that. So I feel like while there was a lot of societal pressure, and obviously my mom would also be worried, it is like, she's hitting 30 and she's not married. But the bright side was that I was studying, I was doing higher studies, I was working, I was independent. So it was not out of necessity, it was all out of, like, I hope you find a companion.
For both of you, as someone who probably knows quite a few single women above the age of 35 at this point, and then you've been in this institution for 10 years, would you recommend this institution, or ask differently, if back in the 90s marriage was not the only option, would you have considered a different kind of partnership?
Would I have done anything differently? I think I would have loved to date around. That's something Harsh and I talk about, and I was like, damn, I would have loved to date around. But I think I don't really think I would have changed a lot.
Harsh?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with her. She should have dated a lot more. She would have realized how lucky she is. Your first question was, would I recommend this to somebody who's 35 or who's looking to get married? I think it goes back to what you're looking to get out of a marriage, right? Marriage is just a label. It can be civil partnership, it can be a living relationship, it can be whatever you want to call it. It's more important that you realize, what do you want out of it? Is it companionship that you're looking for? Is it physical intimacy that you're looking for? Is it emotional, financial support that you're looking for? And then, if that means that you need to get married, and I'm saying this with air quotes because the government needs you to get married, or you need a letter that says that you're married, then I would suggest go ahead and get married, right? Like I said, I think it's just a label. At the end of the day, if you're getting everything that you want out of a companionship with somebody, if it is outside or within a marriage, go with it.
I'm now going to come to some very practical questions of how marriages work because obviously I have zero experience and I'm going to go around and confirm and disconfirm my opinions before, if and ever I make the leap. So, very common question that comes up in couples and not essentially marriages: how do you manage finances? Do you have one bank account? Do you have multiple bank accounts? Share how it works for you and if it works or not. And have you experimented with different styles?
We have experimented with different styles. So just to start with answering your question, we have separate bank accounts. And the way we manage our expenses, and I'm not saying this is the best way to manage it, by the way, but the way we go about it is My account takes care of all the operational expenses, the day-to-day expenses, and we use her account as a saving. So, God forbid something happens to her tomorrow, we are screwed.
I know.
Yeah, so that's why I'm not suggesting that that's the best way to do it, but that is how we do it. And the reason why we are doing it this way is because initially we both used to use our own accounts for spending and operational expenses, and we had absolutely no idea where the money was getting spent and how much was getting spent because it was getting spent from two different accounts. We did not have sight of what was going out of her account versus what was going out of my account, and was it really required as well. So with one account, that makes it easier. We have everything in one place. We know how much we are spending. We know how much we need to manage, and how do we cut down on expenses in the next month if we have gone over budget. And from this year onwards, we've started this thing of creating an annual budget. So very much like companies work, and we're trying to take a pass at it where we have buckets allocated to different types of spending, and we plan to track it every month to see how much we are spending against each of those buckets. That will at least give us an idea of how much we intend to save at the end of the year versus how much we intend to spend.
Do you have access to each other's account? Like, can you log
No,
into
I don't think so.
each other's account?
I can't.
But it's still a collective plan. It's a collective savings. So like if something is in my account, that doesn't mean it's my money and it's your money, your account. So it's our money. We don't have that concept till now of my money and his money, which a lot of married partners do, and which is fine. But for us, I think everything till now is collective, and which means that there's a negotiation every time there's a big spend. And now that we have bought a house, there's like an endless potential to spend money in that house because there are always things that need to be done. So, yeah, we are hoping that the annual budget works for us. But to answer your question, Ankita, we don't have a separate financial pocket of money or financial pool for him and me separately. It's all collective.
Does your budget have like a gift expense in it?
All money we spend in December is Harsh's gift. We've already established that because his birthday is in December. So yeah, it's 10 gifts and counting.
It's all under operational.
So if you say buy a car for Harsh for his birthday, it comes out of the operating account.
Yeah.
No, as in no. So major expenses like that would probably come out of both our accounts. It won't be possible to manage operational expenses and a major spend like that through one account itself. So it depends. We try to stick to one account as far as possible, but sometimes we have to dive into the other one if it's a big expense that we've not accounted for.
I'm still stuck on the gift part. So if Nam has to buy Harsh a gift, Harsh will know what the gift is. So it'll never be a
Hmm.
surprise because he operates that account.
No, because I don't get gifts that are surprises. I get things that I need or want. Oh, you need shoes, so your birthday gift would be
No,
shoes.
come on. No, but we're moving away from that model. I feel like we've taken each other for granted a lot of times. So we are trying to, not like a boring couple and put a little bit of thought into our gifts. So, for example, for Harsh, of the 10 gifts we are counting, one of the gifts was just points that I'd accumulated in my office. So when points are awarded, so I used those points for one of his gifts, AirPods. So sometimes we do try to dig into other sources of income, but at the same time it's not so much of a surprise because a lot of times we have our credit card, we have a combined credit card, and we try to do all of our spending through there, and he loads the credit card, but it's not like he has a visibility. So you can still surprise each other, and then I have my own money if I want to really surprise him. But I think it's more like more than surprise, it's more like what will make him happy. So it's not where the money is coming from.
On that note, like, how do you keep the romance alive after 10 years? What's the most romantic thing? Let's start with you, Nam. What's the most romantic thing you've done for Harsh?
Oh, damn. I should have thought about that.
The short answer. It's going to be a short answer.
I'll tell you what works for me, right? And what works for me is like complete honesty of how I'm feeling. Like sometimes I'll have a conversation with him that, I'm feeling we're living like flatmates rather than a married couple, and we'll have this conversation. And when I mentioned that, we're trying to move away from that model and we're trying to be a bit more intentional. Intentional is the word of 2025 for us. I am fairly vocal in terms of how I'm feeling, and I feel like it helps me be honest with my partner as well that this is how I'm feeling. So we try to go out on dates, or when we are feeling that we are feeling a bit stuck, or we're feeling we're not spending a lot of time with each other. And our romantic things are just like taking a walk, going for a hike. It doesn't have to be a grand, it doesn't have to be something grand. It could be as simple as taking a walk and just like, cooking our favorite meal for each other. So I think I don't remember the best romantic gesture that I've made, but I think lately what I've done is when we were at home for the past 2 3 days, I cooked up some very nice things that will make him happy, and he did the same for me.
So basically, the most romantic thing Nam has done for Harsh is be honest with her feelings. Harsh, do you remember the most romantic thing Nam has done for you? Like, is there something that stands out? She was like, "Damn, she did this."
No, but that is what I don't think we both keep looking for those kind of gestures, right? It's not one big gesture in a year or two big gestures in a year. It's these small things
Yeah.
throughout the year. Like she talked about what she had cooked something that was very new and we loved it, and then that inspired me. So yeah, so
But Harsh, what's the most romantic thing you've done for Nam?
as in this year, I think I've done a lot of things. She got a very nice pair of earrings for her birthday, fairly expensive. We normally don't do expensive gifts. Surprise trips, though the trip eventually did not end up being a great one, and that's nothing to do with us. It was because of the weather there, but it was a surprise trip that we had planned, which she did not know about till she boarded the flight. So that was as surprising as I could make it. Apart from that, what else did we do this year? I'm just trying to think of it.
Not this year, but you've done like treasure hunt where he created like a treasure hunt and he had like small chits in different parts of the house. And then, you have to like find out. That was nice. It prompted by me, but yeah, done by him.
It wasn't prompted by you, anyways. So that it had a lot of riddles, and at the end of the riddle, you could figure out where you're going next or what are you going to do next,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was over a weekend, so there was something planned for lunch dinner both days. But again, this was a while back. But other than that, it's always these small things that we do for each other. Like yeah, like sitting and going through reels for 20 minutes together and laughing at stupid things.
No, I'm making him watch Naruto, an anime that I really like. So I'm making him watch that because, like, I know you like it. So he's sitting through all that.
That's really cool. I'm taking notes. Okay, we got through finances, we got through how to keep the romance alive. There's something that I learned recently that took me by surprise because it's not usual. Nam, you are okay with Harsh being friends with his ex and his ex's family. This is not usual. How does it work? Like, what made it easy?
So I think two things. I have full faith in Harsh. I'm never in doubt that if he's going out of the house or if he's doing something, like I trust him implicitly. The second thing is we started off as friends, right? So I always want what's good for him. What that means is even if I say something that he might not want to hear, I'll be telling him that. And his ex and her family were a big part of his life for very long. So I feel like it brings him joy. It's like an extended family that has been there for him, and he gets that support from him. He gets that love and affection. What is the reason for me to just raise that this is not okay? If I sense something that's probably not okay, I'll raise that. But till now, it's always been very positive. It's always been love, affection, connection. And I don't see any reason to take that away from him just because my insecurity. Or so I don't think that a lot of times when you see things, you know whether they're right or wrong. And this doesn't seem to be something that, jumps out to me as wrong.
That is very mature because when I got into my relationship, I essentially went onto Instagram, deleted all traces of like the things I've done. And I was like, how does she do it? I get it. I don't know whether I'll be able to do it. Tell me this. Do you sleep in the same bed or separate beds?
Sometimes we do in the same bed, sometimes we sleep in separate beds because I was like, if I really need my sleep and if he's snoring, and I was like, okay, that's it. So we whatever we're comfortable with. And sometimes it could mean sleeping together. Sometimes it could mean, okay, you're going to sleep in the other room and I want my own space. There's no set model to follow.
If I'm very tired because of whatever I've done during the day, there is a chance that I snore a lot at night, which makes it very difficult for her to sleep. And then if she does not, she's a very light sleeper. So if she does not get her sleep properly, she's cranky the entire day next day. And that's again something that I have to take care of as well. So it works for both of us. When I'm very tired, I'm like, you sleep in the other room, I sleep in this room. Absolutely no problem at all.
Brilliant. And then, do you know what the other person is doing or where the other person is all the time? Or like, are you okay if the person
Mm,
disappears for like 2 3 hours and someone comes and asks you where is Nam and you're like, I don't know.
I don't think that has ever happened. As in, we always, if we are going out somewhere, we always tell each other where we are going. But that's about it. That's the extent of knowledge. It's not about calling every 30 minutes and checking on somebody. That never happens. I don't think it has ever happened. Just that if it is too late or something, that's where you try to get in touch and just ensure that both of us are okay. But apart from that, I don't think it's,
I think once you couldn't reach me, and then I was like, you were getting very worried,
yeah, because
and
I
I'd
couldn't
gone to,
reach you.
and I didn't know. And Harsh was like, this can't happen again. So he put like location tracking on my phone, and I had no idea. and I got to know a few months later, and I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
Wait, he has location tracking on your phone?
Sorry, that's not true. No, I don't have that. And when it was put on her phone, that was after having told her that it is being
I
put
did
on her
not
phone.
know of that.
And the only reason that was done is because for 3 hours I was roaming all around Balls Bridge trying to find her. When she was comfortably yapping around with some friend of hers walking on, and I literally found her on some random street walking with her friend, which was fine, but at least answer the phone call, cut the phone call. If I'm calling, at least I know that you're alive. That's
Yeah.
about it.
So actually, that's one of the things that I find very annoying about being married, right? And one of the annoying things about being married is that, like he said, that we always know where each other are, and we always travel together. And what happens is your set of friends become his set of friends, and his set of friends become your set of friends. And sometimes I find that quite annoying, and I feel like everything is just becoming like a joint thing. Why can't I have my own set of friends? I want to do my own thing. And part of it, it's not like marriage is stopping me or anything, but part of it just me having gotten into that mindset. And one of the things that I've been trying to do over the past few years, just like change that mindset a little bit, have my own things, do my own thing, have my own set of friends, and do activities which don't involve Harsh. Because I feel like sometimes when you've been married for a long time, it happens that, like I said, your individuality sometimes gets diluted. So it's sometimes good to just step away and just spend some time with yourself, connect with yourself, and just do the reconnect with yourself outside of your bounds of your marriage.
And I like that too as well, because I have a laundry list of things that I have to do in a week or on a day, which is where I need time. And if there is dependency on me, or if there is a reason why we need to be doing something together all the time, that takes away my me time as well. So I absolutely want her to find her own thing, and she has her own things. There are a lot of things that she does. Basically, spend time on that so that I get time to spend on the stuff that I like to do as well. And then we both of us do things that we both like to do. So it always works out that way.
Perfect. Now I'm gonna take you away for more girls' nights and evenings now.
Yes.
One last question for the two of you. We are going to be speaking to a whole bunch of married couples through the course of this season. I'm going to be repeating a whole bunch of questions that I asked you to them also because obviously I'm curious. But is there a question that you have always thought about that you haven't been, or like a topic, that people don't discuss that you would like us to ask other married couples? For example, how often do couples kiss? Like, is it every day? Is it 3 times a day or so on, right? But it's essentially not really a dining table topic. I can't come into a party you're hosting and be like, okay, survey, please tell me. So obviously, like finances is one of those topics and so on. So is there a question that you wish you had more perspectives and are curious about, but you can't just go out and start asking everyone? Because we can.
I'll let you go first, Harsh.
One of the things that comes to my mind is what we just talked about. I would like to know how people spend
Hmm.
their time and how do they split their time as well in terms of doing things that they want to do versus how much time should they be spending with somebody that they want to spend time with as well. And it's not a definite answer, right? But it's about how to manage both, How do you manage your time versus how do you manage our time together as well?
If there was something that is not dinner time conversation and something that I'm very curious to know about other couples, I think sometimes how do they manage conflict when you don't agree on something? How do they manage that? Because I think that will be very interesting, because what happens is both of you feel that you're right, but you want to come on a consensus. So how do you do that? Because it takes time with us, like, it takes time. Sometimes we have to live with that problem for a while before we can come and address that my point of view is this, your point of view is this, and understand each other. But a lot of times when it's just the two of you, and you don't want a third arbiter, right? Because you don't want that kind of model. So how do you happily come on a consensus where you either only one decision can be taken?
Actually, now you've like spiked curiosity. I'm guessing this is a no-brainer, but do the two of you fight?
Yeah, yeah.
It'll be very surprising if there is somebody who does not fight. Then I would want to be on that interview as well.
How often do you fight usually? Like once a month, once a week?
I think fight is a strong word, but we have disagreements, and we'd be like
Hmm.
just like annoyed at each other, and we'll be annoyed at each other almost every day, and then we'll kiss each other almost every day, and like, multiple times. So I feel like there's a balance, and sometimes you just don't agree with somebody, and then you just like spend time away from each other, think with that problem, and then you just like don't speak to each other. That happens very rarely, but then after 2 3 days you kind of like, I want to talk to you, I want to talk to you, let's resolve this, and you come to that point where you want to resolve that problem. That's not to say that you resolve the problem, but at least we both are coming with the same intention of being with each other and supporting each other.
Who's the more hot-headed of the two of
You
you?
take a guess. You know both of us.
Nam?
I would think so.
I think it depends. Like, I'll be hot headed, but then I'm not angry for a long time. But I'll hold on to that anger because my emotions get hurt, and I hold on to that feeling. With Harsh, it's a bit like he'll get angry and then he'll forget about it. And then like, oh, you should forget about it as well because I've forgotten about it. And I was like, that's not how this works. I'm a different person. I manage emotions differently.
That's such a challenge for me then. Because I get over things very, very quickly, whereas she takes her time, understandably so, which has taken a while for me to understand though.
Yeah, even I've learned people have very different conflict resolution skills. Like when I get angry and I want to fight with someone, like I want it to happen in that period of time. Like I want to let it all out. Whereas my partner likes to get up and leave. And I'm like, now who am I to shout at? Like
Yeah.
walls? And then that makes me get angrier and angrier till like if the person comes back within the hour, they had it. So it's better that they stay away for a while.
And to that point, right? And I feel like communication is also so important. And I feel like a lot of times I am always vocal about how I'm feeling, but sometimes I feel like Harsh is not being very vocal. So I feel like I want you to communicate more. Like, I want sentences, paragraphs on how you're feeling, not like one word replies. So I feel like that's also, it's something that's been a learning curve. I was like, I want to know how you're feeling, and I want you to communicate and think about it. And that's a lot of work for a lot of guys. So it takes some time for them to get around that part.
Now, I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to let you go very soon. But before you go, any last thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
Given the context of what we are talking about, I think what really helped us is the fact that we were very good friends. What I would say to your listeners is if you are looking for a lifelong relationship, then it's always good to start by being friends. I'm not saying go and start asking all your friends out, but all I'm saying is it's always good that something like that builds organically to a point where you know you want to spend time with the rest of your life with that person. And checklists are good, but people change. Your checklist also changes. It's always good to have some non negotiables that you absolutely know wouldn't change for the rest of your life. But with the rest of the things, go with the flow, go with how you feel, go with how you vibe, rather than going by a checklist and seeing how many items on the checklist are getting hit.
Yes, I shall pass that information back to Nalini.
Now, this is not for Nalini.
Because she had a very
No.
specific checklist and she said Sherry meets 7 of the 10. But no, it's
No,
good to know.
this is not for her. This is just for anyway. She does not need it anymore.
Yeah.
And I will echo what Harsh has said as well, right? Because I feel like people are always evaluating options. They're trying to, find what's the optimal solution. And when you think about a life partner, it's a long haul thing. I think you need to be authentic. You need to just throw away the checklist and just be yourself.
Again, everything that both of us say also goes with a disclaimer. We are also relatively young in the relationship and we are also trying to find our way through it. So, obviously, this is just based on what we've come across in the last 10 years that we've been together, 10, 12 years that we've been together in total. But again, even the advice keeps evolving. This is not a strict process, it is continuously evolving, it's very dynamic. So,
With that, thank you so much for taking the time out and spending it with us. I got a lot of tips and tricks and answers to a whole bunch of questions. Thank you for being so open. And with that, we
Yay!
are out.